Welcome to part 4 of my mini-series on how to service the KLR650. In this part we're going to replace the front brake pads and bleed the front brake system. So I've got the tools in front of me, exactly what we need to do. So you need a Phillips head, it's number 2, 8mm socket, 12mm socket, 5mm Allen key, 10mm spanner, a large flat screwdriver or something to pry the brake pads apart. Your new brake pads, make sure they're the right ones for the front, so if you're looking at the top of the pad like that, the hooks are on the left hand side. For the rear, the hooks are actually on the right hand side. Some brake cleaner with a rag, and I like to use a toothbrush just to get in there and get the detail. A jug and a pipe to do our bleeding. Of course, some brake fluid. This is Castrol's React Performance Dot Floor brake fluid. Highly recommend it. And then, of course, some copper grease. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is undo this 8mm bolt. Just swing that around to the side like that. And then there's 2 5mm Allen key bolts just here. We're just going to undo them as far as we can, but no need to pull them out just yet. Okay, now we're going to undo these 2 12mm bolts. Start with the bottom first. You'll notice I've just put a bin down there. That's something to rest the caliper on once it's removed. Now, you should be able to just wobble the caliper off like so. Get that, like I say, just have something to rest it on for now. With the caliper now off, you should be able to push down on the pads, pushing against the spring, and withdraw the pin like so. Do that for front and back, then that will actually allow you to take the pads all the way out. Next thing we're going to do is just clean it all in and around. So first off, you're going to need to protect your tyre. Okay, so we're going to now clean the inside of the caliper. I'm going to use some brake cleaner like so. And also please remember to cover up all the tyre, the wheel, the disc brake, just to make sure you don't get any of this on there. This is where I use my toothbrush. Just go around each of the pistons. Okay, now's a good time just to check that you've bought the right ones. So as I remembered, it's very easy to get caught out with the rear brake pads because they're very similar, but these hooks are actually on this side. So I'm happy I've bought the right ones. I'm going to go ahead and open up the packet. There you go, these are our new pads. Feel free to just compare. My old pads actually wasn't too bad, however I know they haven't been changed in a few years. Make sure all the holes line up. I think we're good. Now put your new pads aside, we're going to need our old pads one last time now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is get your bars as level as possible, just so your reservoir is nice and flat. And we're going to just remove the lid of the reservoir, so that when we push the pistons back, it actually allows the fluid to rise back. take off the 2 Phillips head screws. This is where you need a number 2 Phillips head, because you don't want to round these off. And then carefully just remove the cap, pull it straight up, making sure you don't create any bubbles, and that's what it should look like. Sometimes these can be out. Usually what's happened is where the brake fluid has pulled down, it actually draws the rubber with it. So just tuck it back so it looks like this. And let's go back down to the caliper. Okay, back down at our caliper now. We're just going to use our old pads, pop them back in. No need to put the pins through. And we're just going to use a large flathead screwdriver to get the pistons back in. I'm confident that's done enough. Take the old pads back out. Okay, I'm now going to take the time to get our copper grease, rub it around just around the pistons there, very thin smear on both pins, and then just a very light smear again on the back of the pads. Okay, we're now ready to put our new pads in. Making sure you keep them apart. Get your thumb on there. Five millimeters to Allen key, and just start to do them up by hand. We'll tighten them once they're fully on the bike. To put it back on the bike, just make sure you go either side of the disc brake, line up the bolt holes, move this up and back into position. Make sure your rubber's all on there nice. Get your bolt from earlier. Now don't forget to do up your 5mm Allen key bolts. Now coming back to the front of the bike, just check your levels okay. Mine looks right, it's risen a little bit but not too bad. Just pump your brake a few times. There'll be no resistance at first. And what that's doing is just centralising those pads. Okay, now so to bleed the brakes, we're going to use this bleed nipple here. So just take the cap off. Put your ring spanner over. And we're going to get our bleed kit. So mine is just a hose and a jug. Connect it onto the nipple as far as it can go. Now on this bike, it's quite far from here to the front brake, so I'm actually going to employ some help. So my lovely fiance is going to come down and squeeze the brake for me. Okay, so with our glamorous assistant up at the brake lever, we're just going to open up this slightly and ask her to start squeezing now. Squeeze. And what we're looking for is just some bubbles there. And what you need to make sure is the reservoir up the top at the lever doesn't run dry, so only let it get down to about a third full. How's the fluid? Okay, so just need to top up the fluid now. Okay, so we're just going to make sure we top that up. Right, now we're going to keep going. Squeeze, squeeze. So we're looking for any bubbles in here at all. And also the changing colour when the new fluid comes through. How's the fluid?
Yeah, fine.
Not had any bubbles yet, which is a good sign. Just going to go top up the fluid one more time. Still no bubbles. And the colour of the fluid has just started to change, so we know that's the new fluid coming through. Right, hold the lever in. Just going to tighten off now. I'm happy that there's no air in there and we've got a new fluid in there. Just do this up, don't over tighten it. Pop the cap off, let that drain down. Remove your 10mm spanner. Just give the nipple a bit of a wipe. And the cap is ready to go on. Okay, so I've just topped the reservoir up to the top of the circle there with our new brake fluid, making sure the rubber is inside. Just going to place that down neatly. Get your 2 screws from earlier. Just got a bit of rag in my hand to give it a wipe up afterwards. Brake fluid can be quite corrosive, so just give it a good wipe, making sure no drips. And there we go, that's my video on how to remove, replace and bleed the front brakes on a 2010 KLR650. If you found this video helpful, please check out my other videos on the KLR, or indeed any of my other videos on the channel. And to help me support my channel, just give me the thumbs up and please subscribe.